Hello everyone, this is Powell Ponder on Weather. In this video, you need to prepare now for large hail, damaging winds, and some tornadoes with snow on the backside. So if you're new to this channel, hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to it. Here's the overall watches and warnings as of this morning, April the 6th. And man, we've got some high winds you're going to be dealing with over the next several days. We already have some high wind watches and advisories out in portions of Kansas, getting into Oklahoma. They've got a wind advisory here for North Texas and even southern parts of Texas here. But a red flag warning with an extreme fire danger. Humidity values are crazy low out here, talking like 3% in New Mexico and out portions of West Texas. So definitely an extreme fire danger out in that neck of the woods where it's kind of been bone dry, and those higher winds are going to mix with that, and that could, elevate the fire danger later on this afternoon. And we've got snow to the north where that cold core on the backside is going to be dumping that heavier snow into portions of, getting into Wyoming later on today. So here, but we talked about the big warm up that was on the way, and it's here in a big way. In fact, we've got record high temperatures yesterday for extending all the way to the Four Corners region, to the midsection of the country, getting into portions of Minnesota, before that cold front. So yeah, they've been dealing with some, record high temperatures, 20, 25, almost 30 degrees above average. And here's your overall surface map this morning. You can look at the temperatures and where that cold front lies, but back behind, we've got snow flying in Idaho Falls this morning, getting into Wyoming, and we've got rain out ahead of it with some stronger storms into places in South Dakota. That extends where they had some rain overnight and some stronger storms in Minnesota. That's now into portions of Wisconsin, but we're going to be keeping an eye on this system right here, and there's that cold front out ahead of it, and you can see all the warmer temperatures that's got to tap into down to the south and to the southeast. So as we kind of walk you through the overall surface map, here's the latest outlook for later on today, Tuesday, getting into about 3-4 o'clock time frame. You can definitely see that snow is flying on the backside into getting into portions of Nebraska here, but then rain out ahead of it into South Dakota, and that will extend into Nebraska as well as that low continues to dive down to the southeast. But by the time we get into tonight, say around 9 o'clock, 3Z is 9 o'clock tonight on Tuesday, we could be looking at some stronger storms with those that tapping into the heating of the day that's kind of left over, and that could be setting the stage for some bigger hail cores starting to set up in portions of Kansas here. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center has already highlighted a slight risk for severe weather for a good chunk of Kansas, including Wichita, Overland Park, getting into Kansas City, as well as Topeka. And then even a marginal risk extending as far south as Tulsa, Oklahoma, getting into Des Moines, Iowa. So this chunk right here will be under the gun for large hail and damaging winds. And we do have a low-end tornado threat with this particular setup. But I think that as we get into Wednesday, these storms are just going to intensify even more as this low continues to dive down to the southeast, where they're going to tap into a little bit more available moisture to work with. Because as we get into the overnight on Tuesday, getting into Wednesday morning, this is like 4 o'clock in the morning. Some of these are going to be nighttime, nocturnal producing storms and portions of Oklahoma as this continues to shift off into Kansas, getting into Missouri by then with just some stronger storms up to the north and Minnesota. But this is the area of concern that we're going to have to be watching out for as this continues to dive down to the southeast, because look at the dew points. I mean, back behind that cold core, yeah, it's very dry, and that's where we're talking about those red flag warnings out here in New Mexico here. But yeah, you can definitely see where that cold front is going to be flying through on Wednesday. That's going to be drying out the air in a big way, but out ahead of it, Man, it's like a soup. I mean, it's like 70-degree dew points to tapping into, south into Houston here, into Louisiana, into Mississippi and Alabama, get into especially like Arkansas, Missouri. I mean, those 60-degree dew points extend all the way almost to the Canadian border. I mean, that's some very moist air for this time of year and extending, and that's the culprit from these storms that's going to be able to tap into that energy source. Because as we get into Wednesday, going into this is about noontime on Wednesday, we start to see kind of a narrow band with that comma Q shape kind of setting up, and that's indicative of some stronger winds out ahead of it, and this could form a what they call a linear line. And you could set the stage for a tornado threat. In fact, that's going to be your highest probability of or tornadoes, of damaging winds, and the larger hail as we get into Wednesday here. And even, in fact, the Storm Prediction Center has highlighted a slight risk, and I do feel they're even going to enhance this even further to at least an enhanced risk as we get closer to the event. But yeah, right now we're looking at portions, let's say Memphis, Tennessee, getting into Shreveport, Louisiana, especially like Arkansas is going to get hit hard with this particular system. Little Rock, Jackson, Mississippi, Longview, Texas, as it kind of sets up just east of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then it extends off into portions of East Texas, especially getting into Arkansas. And then that'll extend into western Tennessee, getting into portions of Nashville and even portions of Omaha, Nebraska. Could see some stronger storms with this system as it dives down. But yeah, the main culprit for this storm is going to be your damaging winds with that bow echo setting up. That's going to be your linear line of storms, your squall line setting up. That could be pushing off some 60, 70 mile per hour wind gusts easily at it right along that banding there. And then that could set the stage for also that isolated tornado threat along that banding as well, as that shifts off from the west to the east, going into the late afternoon hours on Wednesday, into the overnight, into the evening, and then extending just into the overnight hours the further east you live. But yeah, the tornado threat is prevalent from East Texas. That'll extend pretty much a good chunk of Arkansas, getting into northern Louisiana, and then especially as you get into, say, Jackson, Mississippi, those areas are going to be under the gun for all three modes of severe weather coming up on Wednesday, because that band, here's the latest radar by 4 o'clock in the afternoon coming up on Wednesday. You can definitely see the setup starting to take shape into East Texas. That'll extend into northern portions of Louisiana, especially as we get into Arkansas, into central Missouri here with those stronger storms. And in fact, the latest tornado parameter index, 1 through 10 actually tops it out around a 5 right here in central Arkansas and northern Louisiana, right around, at late afternoon into the early evening. So that is your biggest risk and area of concern. And this will dive down to the southeast as getting into portions of Mississippi. So those, 6 to 9 hours there, you're going to have to be on the high alert for those tornadoes forming in this sector of the country, and some large supercells with damaging winds and some large hail. Here's your supercell composite index. Yeah, I mean, we're talking, ranges from 10 to 15. So definitely some larger supercells towering up 30, 40,000 feet up in the air. And it's got some updrafts with it. So that's going to cause your tornado risk, but also your higher hail risk as well, as those, ice balls continue to lift up in the atmosphere and just kind of get bigger and bigger and bigger. So yeah, so you'd be looking at some definitely some larger hailstones on this particular sector as we get into, later in the day on Wednesday into the overnight. And your Cape values with this system is high as well. So, I mean, we're talking all the modes are starting to come together for this particular area are going to be under the gun. So you get, if you live in Louisiana, if you live in Arkansas, if you live in Mississippi, going into portions of Alabama, getting into Western Tennessee, Western Kentucky here, say Southern Illinois, right around Wednesday, that would be your setup for your severe weather as we get later on the day and then into the overnight. Here's your midnight view by Wednesday at midnight here. That rain and stronger storms will continue push off. So unfortunately, this is an overnight setup for you guys as we get into good chunk of Louisiana now. Covering Mississippi here, getting into Western Tennessee, Western Kentucky, and then that extends into Illinois as well. And that will continue to shift off into the east on Thursday, and then the severe threat lessens pretty substantial as it shifts further off into Thursday, as the westerlies will kind of shear these systems apart, and they don't have all the dynamics in place for the thunderstorms to be as robust as they were, just to the west of you just previous. So I'm not looking for that too much of a deal into the stronger setup as we get into Georgia. Getting into portions of Alabama here, getting into Georgia, and then eastern Tennessee the storms aren't going to be nearly as strong as they were. And then in fact, the Storm Prediction Center has had just a marginal risk for those severe storms as this extends through the day on Thursday. Because, like I said, I don't think the storms are going to be nearly as strong, but you still have to look for some isolated setup just, again, east of Dallas here into New Orleans, Birmingham, getting into Montgomery, Alabama, into Shreveport as well. And then as we go into the day on Friday, that will continue to shift, but there's also a secondary piece of energy that could be looking to set up as well, just on the backside. So that could set up just, say, west of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So we could see a 30 to 40% chance of isolated thunderstorms starting to set up later in the day into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and that will extend into eastern Texas, and that extends into southern portions, the southeast by then. So this threat could be intensifying. This is only Tuesday. By the time Friday rolls around, we could be looking at yet another stronger setup in this area right here, as kind of the dynamics come back together one more time with more instability with this low pressure. And then we have yet another cold front that's going to be swinging through as well. So here's your Cape values for that particular event coming up on Friday, and they're even higher than previously. So there's going to be a lot of energy to tap into. Now the capping inversion, because I mean these temperatures are going to be really high, at ahead of the system, and we're talking in the 90s here, if not the 80s, coming into Dallas. But it's going to be a lot of warm air. So there are going to be dealing with a capping inversion. So we'll just have to see how that's going to be able to hold as we get a little bit closer to the event. But there's definitely going to be a lot of energy into the atmosphere coming up on Friday here in central and south Texas, get into to Louisiana by then. So that could be setting the stage for yet another stronger setup. And in fact, the flash index, even this, far out, 4 days out, still shows some storms. If it's able to overcome that cap, could be looking at some stronger storms with a lot of lightning setting up with this particular system as it gets into the day on Friday, especially into the overnight, because look what's out ahead of it. I mean, look at the temperatures on Friday as these soar throughout the week, and they max out by then. We're talking 102 here in South Texas, so and then 90s for a good chunk of, say, San Antonio, Austin. So you're going to be seeing your hottest temperatures of the season with this setup coming up on Friday. But there's your cold front, and we look at the hot. These are hot, more or less high temperatures at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We're talking it's struggling to get above freezing in some of these portions over here. So you can definitely see there's definitely some colder air on the backside, and that's obviously going to modify as it shifts off to the southeast. But yeah, so that's going to be could be tapping into that warm sector and setting the stage for some isolated severe threat that's going to be starting, initializing into the Dallas-Fort Worth area and then shifting off to East Texas. There's your setup by midnight. This will be into East Texas, getting into Arkansas again, get into Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama with your heavier rains by then, and probably some stronger storms. And these probably aren't going to be nearly as strong up here into the Carolinas, going into West Virginia and Virginia. But as we continue through the day on Saturday, that line will just continue to shift. And yes, we could see some stronger storms again, setting up over portions of Illinois and Indiana, Kentucky here, Tennessee, getting into Alabama and Georgia again with those heavier rains, and that will continue to shift off into to the Mid-Atlantic states coming up on Saturday, going into Sunday, as just some isolated rain and probably not a severe threat by then. But overall, here's your precipitation over the next 6-7 days. I mean, it's pretty bone dry, and from Oregon here to California, all the Southwest here in the western states, I mean, they can't buy a drop of rain as these systems kind of traverse along the same line here from the Northwest, continue into the central U.S., and then really amplify as it taps into that warm moisture, and it sets up just basically Dallas, or just to the east of Dallas, into Texas with those heavier rains. And then it's just inundated over the southeast and Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, getting into western Tennessee, and even some heavier rains up here as these systems kind of split. Getting into South Dakota, into Minnesota, especially into Wisconsin, even portions of Michigan could see some heavier rains throughout the week. So, and here's your wind gust throughout the week as well. Like I mentioned, we could be looking at some stronger winds of upwards to 60, 70, almost 80 miles an hour at times. So definitely be looking out and secure a lot of your loose objects out there. It's going to be just a windy a week for much of the country. And then here's your snow on the backside. So there's going to be a lot of colder air with that along that cold core. So places into the higher elevations of Idaho, into Montana, getting into Wyoming, and portions of South Dakota here, Nebraska here, be looking at some snow flying with some isolated 6 to 12 inches is not out of the question overall for the rest of the week. So, hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after storm.